First off, I'd like to say that this video is dedicated to Miriam Cumming, who left a comment on my last video. They said, "Have you done a video on why the God of the Old Testament seems like a completely different dude in the New Testament? I'd also love to hear your take on the idea that the rules in the Old Testament no longer apply because of the events in the New. I have a lot of Christian mates who hold this view." I am planning to discuss how and why the God of the Hebrew Bible is a different dude from the New Testament God. But in this video, I'm going to discuss the second part of your comment. Enjoy! Alright, so the question of to what extent the biblical law is binding on Christians is an old one. There is more than one way to look at it. The first is that the law of Moses is only binding to Jewish people. After all, the covenant at Sinai was with Israel, not with the rest of the world. The second is that the law of Moses is abolished by or fulfilled in Jesus' death and resurrection. These are not necessarily mutually exclusive though. Okay, so the first one. Today's Judaism recognizes a set of commands called the 7 Laws of Noah, also known as the Noahide Laws. These are found within Genesis and in the Talmud, an authoritative text about Jewish law. According to this concept, God gave Noah a set of laws that all his descendants should follow. And since the Gentiles, non-Jews, would be descended from Noah, that would include them. There is a possible pre-Christian reference to the Noahide laws in the Book of Jubilees, but there is no explicit reference to them in the New Testament. Galatians 2 includes a passage in which the author says he had an argument with Peter, who had been forcing non-Jewish converts to Christianity to follow Jewish commands. And then there's Acts 15, in which a council of Christians presents a short list of commands rather than the whole law of Moses to non-Jewish converts. This seems reminiscent of Noahide laws to me. And then the idea that the law of Moses was abolished and done away with. There are passages like Colossians 2, which Christians often use to show that the law is nailed to the cross and done away with. Okay, but we all know that Christians do believe that God still wants them to do some things, right? What's interesting though is that different groups and people within Christianity, with all their beautiful diversity, have different ways of determining what those are. I've heard some Christians distinguish the law of Moses into ceremonial, civil, and moral laws. The ceremonial laws would be irrelevant because they pointed to Jesus and are thus fulfilled. The civil laws would only be binding to the nation of Israel, and the moral laws would still be binding. I don't know how they decide which is which, honestly. And I suppose different churches would have their own ways of delineating. Other Christians say that the only commands that are important are what are stated in the New Testament. All this makes for a lot of varying ideas about what is binding to Christians and what isn't. Some give 10% of their income to the church, a practice called tithing, and others keep Sabbath, both of which are outlined in the books attributed to Moses. The last church that I went to went as far as to say that Christians are supposed to keep not only Sabbath, but the annual holidays God commanded to Israel, as well as the prohibition against eating unclean meat, etc. There are other Christians too that believe that the entire law of Moses is binding on Christians because of the idea that Christians are grafted into Israel through faith. So to recap, there are a few reasons that Christians do not believe that the law of Moses is binding on them. Some would say that they aren't Jewish, so it never was. Others would say that the law was abolished. Some would say both. Thank you very much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and do the things. Bye.